During the earthquake, I shielded my son with my body. My husband arrived, but only had time to save our son. By the time rescuers reached me, my limbs were irreparably crushed, leaving me dependent on their care. Years later, the boy I had nearly died for handed me a document and spoke without emotion. "Mom, you're a burden. No one wants to marry into a family with you still here." Beside him, my husband added coldly, "You saved his life. Don't let your condition ruin it now." I signed the papers with trembling hands and left them both behind. After that, I lived in my wheelchair, scraping by on whatever I could find. One day, while searching for recyclables near a park, I saw them together. My husband, my son, and the woman who had always stood between us. They looked like a picture-perfect family. Then I overheard their laughter. My son's voice was bright and innocent. "Good thing Mom's gone. Now Aunt Lily can be my real mom." That was the moment my heart stopped beating. I died with their betrayal echoing in my ears. But when I opened my eyes again, I was back beneath the rubble, right at the start of it all.
"Mom.
Where are you going? Come back.
Don't leave me."
My son's terrified voice pierced the air as he struggled under the collapsed concrete. But I didn't turn around. I kept crawling. In my past life, I had stayed behind to protect him, using my own body as a shield. And in return, he had cast me aside like something worthless. The image of him smiling beside Lily burned in my mind. If that was what my sacrifice led to, then saving him again would be meaningless. I looked over my shoulder once, just long enough to see his tear-streaked face, then dragged myself toward a nearby rescue station where other survivors had gathered. "Please help," I shouted, feigning panic. "My son is still trapped. Please save him." As rescuers began treating my wounds, disinfecting the cuts on my arms, a figure appeared through the dust and chaos.
"Mark."
My husband. He rushed straight toward where our son was pinned, ignoring the blood running down his arm. He pulled Caleb free, with frantic strength. Then he paused, just for a moment, his gaze flicking toward the unstable slab of concrete where I had crawled out from. And then, with one swift kick, he shattered the last wooden beam holding it up. The ground trembled as the rubble came crashing down. In that instant, I realized the truth. The collapse that had nearly killed me before wasn't an accident, it was his doing. I had spent years believing he'd simply run out of time. I had even comforted him, saying I didn't blame him for not saving me. But now I saw it clearly. He had wanted me gone. He scooped Caleb into his arms and ran, not toward safety, but toward the place where Lily had been buried. In the distance, I noticed a news van arriving, reporters sprinting toward the scene with cameras ready. Wiping my tears, I forced a sob, dropped to the ground, and began to wail, my cries echoing through the ruins. When Mark finally appeared with Lily in his arms, his rescue uniform was ripped and filthy, the sleeves shredded as if he'd fought his way through hell to reach her. It was clear the place she'd been trapped in had been far more dangerous than where I was found. I watched them from a distance and couldn't help but laugh, a sharp, broken sound that didn't feel like it came from me at all. In my previous life, I'd believed Mark had broken protocol and rushed into the disaster zone because of me and our son. But now I understood the truth. He had come here for her. His beloved Lily. Our little boy, Caleb, barely reaching her waist, clung to her side, trying to help her walk. Mark's voice softened as he spoke to Lily, his tone full of tenderness I hadn't heard in years. "It's all right now," he murmured. "The main team will be here soon. I'll make sure they take you to the best hospital." My chest ached. So that was how he had treated her back then, while I was left to die under the rubble. A reporter approached me, camera light glaring in my face. "Ma'am, can you tell us who that rescuer was? The man in uniform?" Tears still fresh in my eyes, I turned toward the approaching trio. My voice trembled as I spoke. "That's my husband," I said, pointing. "And the woman he risked his life to save is his first love." Mark froze mid-step. "Sarah," he stammered, staring at me as if I were a ghost. How are you still alive?" I let out a shaky laugh. "That's exactly what you want to know, isn't it? How I survived the death you planned for me." The crowd grew quiet. I lifted a trembling hand, pointing toward the wreckage behind me. "Do you see that broken beam? My husband kicked it down after saving our son. He made sure that slab would fall and crush me. If I hadn't found another way out, I'd be dead right now." The reporters rushed closer, microphones thrust toward me. "Please calm down," one urged. "Tell us clearly what happened." "I thought he simply didn't have time to save me," I sobbed, struggling for air. I believed he broke orders to come for us, for his family. But it was never about us. He came for her. Captain Mark Miller, if you wanted to be with your old flame, you could have divorced me. Why try to kill me? The scene exploded into chaos. Cameras flashed like lightning. Mark instinctively pulled Lily into his arms, shielding her from the glare. Then he turned on me, his expression tight with fury. Sarah, stop. Do you realize what you're saying? You're ruining her reputation. I pointed at him, shaking.
See?
Even now, the first person he protects is her. The murmurs from the onlookers turned into shouts. Wait, isn't he supposed to be a rescuer? And he ignored orders to save his ex instead of his wife. Lily? That name sounds familiar. Oh, I know. She's that influencer, right? Yeah, the one who got caught sneaking into a hotel with a fan. There was some livestream drama about that. Someone from the crowd hurled a rotten egg. It burst against Lily's cheek, dripping down her face. You homewrecker, someone shouted. How many families have you destroyed? And you, another yelled at Mark. You'd rather let your wife die than give up your mistress? Disgusting. Hey, reporters, zoom in. Let's make her famous for the right reason this time. Lily screamed, hiding her face against Mark's chest. It's not true. I didn't do anything. But the cameras didn't stop. Mark should have stepped away. Any professional in uniform would have. Instead, after a moment of hesitation, he wrapped an arm around Lily and pulled her behind him protectively. Sarah, he barked. Tell them the truth. You're trying to destroy an innocent person's life. I cried harder, my voice raw. An innocent person? You called a woman you abandoned your wife to save innocent. The crowd erupted again. You hear that? He left his wife for her. And he still thinks he's the victim? Trash. Both of them. Someone shouted. Let's teach them a lesson. That's when Caleb stepped forward, his little body trembling but defiant. Don't touch my dad, he screamed. My daddy and Aunt Lily didn't do anything wrong. My mom is lying. His words sliced through the noise like a knife. He pointed straight at me, his eyes full of rage. You all think she's some poor victim, but she's not. She left me trapped under the rubble. She crawled out by herself and didn't even look back. If my dad hadn't saved me, I'd be dead right now. The crowd went silent, every gaze suddenly heavy on me. Mark didn't waste the opening Caleb had given him. That's exactly right, he said firmly. When I arrived, my wife was already gone. I kicked that beam to remove a safety hazard, not to hurt her. I'd never harm my own family. His voice trembled with emotion, and the sight of him, strong, uniformed, looking heartbreakingly misunderstood, was enough to sway several people in the crowd. She's my wife, he went on, his tone cracking just enough to sound sincere. Caleb is our son. If Sarah were still trapped, my boy would have said so. I only acted after making sure she was safe. Then he turned toward Lily, gesturing as if to shield her from the cameras. As for Ms. Hayes, I couldn't find my wife. Someone else was in danger, so I helped. That's what rescuers do. But I never imagined, his voice caught. Sarah, I never imagined you'd accuse me of something like this. The audience, who had once looked at him with disgust, began to waver. A nearby survivor piped up. That's true. When she came over earlier, her son wasn't with her. I remember that clearly. Wait, so she really left her kid under the rubble? Someone whispered. If she was still trapped, her son would have said something. The boy must have told his dad she'd already escaped. Cameras zoomed in on my face. Unbelievable, a reporter muttered. She slanders her husband, a rescuer, after abandoning her own child? Another shouted, you left your son behind and now blame your husband for saving someone else? What kind of mother are you? Rotten vegetables and bits of garbage started flying. A bucket of dirty water splashed across me. The stench, the flashes, the shouting, it all blurred together. Tears welled in my eyes, real ones this time. Because no matter what I said, no one would believe me. The truth belonged to my past life, a timeline that only I remembered. So, I did the only thing I could. I fell to the ground, trembling, and screamed in pain. Someone gasped. Look at her back, it's covered in blood. Get a first aid kit. Quick. The same woman who had treated me earlier rushed over, pressing gauze to my wounds. I faced the cameras again, my voice shaking with exhaustion. I never thought that running out to find help for my child would turn into people accusing me of abandoning him. I cried. If I really wanted to leave him, why would I have shielded him with my body? She poured alcohol on the open cuts. The The sting was unbearable, and I screamed again, my voice raw and full of anguish. The woman turned to the reporters. It's true. When she reached us, she only said, "Please save my son." I had to force her to sit down before she bled out completely. The crowd quieted. The earlier hatred faded into guilt as they watched me writhe in pain, my torn clothes soaked in blood. Caleb's gaze lingered on me. For a fleeting second, something like remorse flickered in his eyes. Then he looked away and muttered, "Serves you right. I never asked you to protect me." His voice wasn't loud, but it was enough. "What did that little brat just say?" someone shouted. Another voice rose, furious. "You see? Like father, like son. A heartless man and his spoiled boy. Expose them. Don't let these people get away with it." "That's right. Film everything. The world should know what they did." Mark moved instinctively, pulling Lily close to shield her. That, of course, only enraged the crowd even more. "Still protecting your mistress?" someone yelled. "Get them all. Every last one." Hands reached out, grabbing, shoving. Mark tried to push through, but chaos had already taken over. Meanwhile, I was carried a few steps away by rescuers. From the edge of the turmoil, I looked at the three of them, Mark, Lily, and Caleb, and a faint, cold smile touched my lips. I'd endured worse pain before. When my limbs had been crushed in my last life, I hadn't even screamed. "Mark, my dear husband," I thought silently. "How does it feel to be the one trapped now?" Just as the shouting reached its peak, a commanding voice cut through the noise. "Enough." The crowd froze. A sleek black sedan had pulled up nearby, and from it stepped a man in a tailored suit, his presence radiating authority. A helicopter hovered above, lowering rescue personnel by rope. "What is going on here?" he demanded. The man stopped in front of Mark, but his piercing gaze was on me. Even if someone is at fault, the law, not mob justice, decides their punishment. Since when did tears give people the right to violence? My stomach twisted. I recognized that voice. It was Arthur Tang, Mark's powerful mentor, the man who had once protected him like a son. "Sir, you don't understand. This man tried to kill his own wife, I will look into it myself." Arthur cut in, voice calm but iron strong. "You will get an answer you can trust." He parted the crowd with quiet authority, and before anyone could object, he announced, "I will take him in for questioning. Please remain calm." With that, he guided Mark, Caleb, and Lily away from the mob. From the safety of Mark's arms, Lily glanced back at me, a small, triumphant smile playing across her face. I spent a few days in hospital care. After I was discharged, an envelope arrived, an invitation from Arthur Tang himself. When we met, Arthur pushed a thick stack of cash toward me. "Sarah, let it go," he said, smooth and patronizing. "I've already reprimanded Mark. You two have been married a long time. Don't make this into something bigger than it needs to be. Consider this compensation." It was all a misunderstanding. I looked at the 20,000, then back at his face. Mark was one of Arthur's chosen protégés, someone he had been grooming. This whole rescue story would polish Mark's image, boost his career, and reward Arthur's investment. I pushed the money back. "I won't let him walk free," I said. "I know what kind of man he is, Mr. Tang. I will not let him succeed." Arthur's expression tightened. "Be careful, Miss Jones. You have no family backing you. Don't make a mistake that costs you everything. That job you fought so hard to keep, remember how easily things can be taken away." He stood, paid the bill, and left, the warning hanging in the air like a threat. My heart sank because I recognized exactly how this would play out. In the end, Mark would be exonerated, promoted, and everything would be bowed to Arthur's will. I dug my phone out of my bag and dialed a number I had avoided for years. "Grandpa Lou? You once told me I could come to you if I ever needed help. Is that still true?" At Mark's promotion ceremony, Lily was the one at his side.
"I wasn't looking for them."
I was simply passing by when a media swarm froze me in place. Banners, reporters, cameras. There they were on a raised platform, Mark in uniform, Lily holding Caleb's hand, smiling like victory incarnate. Lily wore a designer dress and waved with the practiced ease of someone used to attention. "We were only doing our duty," she said modestly, and the crowd ate it up. Someone near me sighed with approval. "Now that's the kind of person to admire, not those tabloid celebrities." "Exactly," another added. Mr. Miller saved dozens, and Mrs. Miller worked tirelessly behind the scenes for months. Can you believe that person tried to ruin them? What a monster, probably with ulterior motives. I stopped cold. Mrs. Miller worked behind the scenes for 3 months? I asked, bewildered. Isn't that obvious? Didn't you watch the news? Someone scoffed. But memory told me otherwise. After I recovered, I had returned to the relief effort and run logistics myself, moving between front lines and supply depots, making sure medicines and food reached those who needed them. In those months, I had not seen Lily or Mark at the front. Someone else noticed my confusion, and their tone shifted. Wait, aren't you the woman from the coverage? The one who tried to smear them? The realization spread like wildfire. Arthur's fingerprints were all over this, I understood. He had a talent for rewriting stories to protect those he favored. That's her, someone shouted. The media said she pretended to be Mrs. Miller. She manufactured the whole online attack on them. You have the nerve to show your face here? We thought you'd run away. How dare you slander a hero? Voices rose, cameras swung, and the crowd closed in, ready to deliver the verdict. Arthur's version of events had already decided. The uproar snagged Mark's attention, and he stepped forward, hands raised, trying to calm everyone down. Stop it, don't make this worse, he ordered. They say she tried to ruin you, someone shouted back. For an instant his eyes found mine, and I saw surprise flicker across his face. Lily recovered quickly, smiling as if nothing were wrong. Oh, it's you, she cooed, feigning magnanimity. Even if you took credit for some of my logistics work, I forgive you. Just don't repeat it, all right? I was only trying to help. Mrs. Miller, you are too kind, called a bystander. We can't let this scum walk free after attacking a hero. Before I could protest, a rough hand yanked my arm behind me and forced me to the ground. Pain exploded at my arm. I gasped. Let her go, Mark said, frowning as he looked my way. The crowd faltered for a heartbeat. Lily leaned close to him, whispering urgency into his ear. If you let her go now, people will think we're lying. I'll be dragged online again. Mark froze, torn. Then with a long, reluctant breath, he turned away. Just don't let it go too far, he muttered and walked off. That was all the permission the mob needed. You bitch. How dare you slander Mr. and Mrs. Miller? We'll teach you a lesson, someone screamed. Hands pushed, fists rose. My arm felt like it might snap. You're going to jail for this, another shouted. They grew bolder, chanting for violence. Break her legs too. Then she can't hurt anyone else. No, I cried, pinned as a man wound up to stomp on my knee, the force about to mimic the crippling blow of my last life. Stop right there. A car skidded to a halt, tires screaming. The would-be attacker flew backward, sent sprawling by a swift, powerful kick. A man in a tailored suit reached down and helped me up. Are you all right, Miss Jones? He asked. I blinked at him, bewildered. You are. I am Leo Liu, General Adrian Liu's grandson, he said calmly. My grandfather is unwell, so he sent me to pick you up. Mark, who had been about to re-enter the venue, whirled around, incredulous. Did you say Adrian Liu? From the military district? The very same, Leo confirmed. Mark laughed, scornful. Impossible. How could Sarah possibly know General Liu? Be honest, who are you to her? His fists tightened. Leo put himself between me and Mark, protective and steady. I suggest you show some respect. Mark's face flushed, and he took an involuntary step forward, but Lily gripped his arm. Honey, she called, clinging to him. Mark swallowed hard, jaw clenched. I'm sorry, but you're not welcome here. Security, detain Ms. Jones for questioning and escort this man off the premises. Leo's voice hardened, like steel. I'd like to see you try. The security guards froze, suddenly wary. A cool voice cut in from behind Mark. Miss Jones, it seems you didn't take my warning to heart. Arthur Tang appeared, flanked by local officials and aides, his expression unreadable. Since you refused to behave reasonably, then you? His words trailed, full of meaning. Arthur Tang froze when he saw who was standing in front of me. His arrogance disappeared instantly, replaced by a nervous, flattering smile. Mr. Liu, what an honor. How is the general's health these days? He said, quickly extending his hand. Leo ignored him. Arthur's forced grin faltered, and sweat began to bead at his temple. Leo's tone turned icy. So, Captain Tang, you're involved in this mess too? Arthur let out a strained chuckle. No, it's a misunderstanding. I was just here to congratulate my former subordinate. He glanced nervously around, then added, since we're all here, perhaps we should go inside and talk. Leo arched an eyebrow but said nothing. Arthur wiped his palms on his trousers, visibly trembling. The crowd instinctively moved aside to clear a path for Leo. He gestured for me to walk ahead of him. Mark's frown deepened, while Caleb stared, wide-eyed. As I passed by, Mark grabbed my arm roughly. "What is going on, Sarah?" Leo cleared his throat pointedly. "Mr. Miller, isn't your wife over there?" he said, nodding toward Lily. Mark hesitated, flinched slightly, then released me. I want him to walk away, with nothing. My voice was steady, emotionless. We sat in a private room. Arthur Tang across from me, Leo nearby, and Mark and Lily opposite. Arthur no longer carried his usual superiority. He looked cautious, even deferential. After a moment of tense silence, Arthur nodded. Mark has indeed made mistakes. Fine, if that's your wish, he'll leave with nothing. No. Lily shot up from her chair, voice sharp with panic. He can't leave with nothing. I turned to her, my tone cold. "Ms. Hayes, this is between my husband and me. You have no right to interfere." Her face flushed, but she refused to back down. "No, Sarah, you're not innocent either. If you hadn't pushed him to move to the city, none of this would have happened. He could have opened a small shop, lived peacefully. You're the one who forced him into this life. You made him ambitious, pressured him, and now you're punishing him for trying to succeed. You're the one who deserves nothing." I blinked, momentarily stunned by her audacity. Leo burst into laughter, unable to hold it back. "That's rich. Ms. Hayes, if Sarah hadn't used her own money to help Mark move to the city, you wouldn't have even met him. Maybe thank her for introducing you to this successful man of yours." Mark's jaw tightened. Lily scowled. "That's not true. Mark and I were destined to be together." "You mean he had a promising career and a powerful sponsor?" I said dryly. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I ignored her and slid the divorce papers across the table toward Mark. "Sign them, and I'll still leave you enough to live on." Before I could react, pain shot through my hand, a sharp, biting sting that made me gasp. "You little brat. What do you think you're doing?" Leo lunged forward, grabbing Caleb by the collar and yanking him away. My hand throbbed. Blood welled from a perfect circle of teeth marks. The boy had bitten me, hard.
Ah.
I hissed as Leo poured disinfectant over the wound. "It's all right, I'll take you to the hospital," he said, tearing a strip from his sleeve to wrap my hand. But Mark shoved him aside, face pale with anger and guilt. "Are you all right?" Mark asked, his voice trembling slightly. Before I could answer, Caleb screamed, "Bad mommy. Don't you bully Aunt Lily," and lunged at me again. "Enough," Leo barked, holding him back easily. In the struggle, I fell to the ground. I stared at my son, my heart sinking. My voice trembled. "Do you hate me that much?" Pinned under Leo's arm, Caleb glared up at me. "I hate you. You make me study all the time. You never buy me toys or snacks. You don't love me. Aunt Lily lets me do whatever I want. You're mean and selfish. You don't deserve Daddy or his money." Leo let out a short, cold laugh. "Funny, since half of your family's money was earned by your mother." Caleb faltered, then muttered stubbornly, "But she hurt me and Daddy too. She should pay us back." My vision blurred. I pulled my hand from Mark's grasp and whispered, "That son, he's yours too." Caleb's expression softened, but Mark's eyes filled with regret. "Sarah, please, let's not rush." "I'm not rushing," I snapped, slamming the divorce papers against his chest. "Sign it, or I'll see you in court." Leo turned toward Arthur Tang, who immediately barked, "Mark, don't make this harder than it has to be." But Enough. Arthur's voice cracked like a whip. "Sign the papers, or you're out of my team for good." Mark's hand trembled as he picked up the pen. His eyes met mine, red and uncertain. "Sarah, can I still see you sometimes? Or if you want to see Caleb?" I shook my head. There was nothing left to say. Lily tugged at his sleeve, whispering urgently, "Mark, if you don't sign, everyone will think I'm your mistress again. The media will destroy me." Mark closed his eyes, took a shaky breath, and signed. I smiled faintly, though it felt hollow. He had always been like this, half loyal, half coward. Whenever Lily was involved, I was the one sacrificed, even when my life was on the line. But this time, he didn't know that the future he dreamed of ended the moment his pen touched the paper. Not long after our divorce, Arthur Tang's empire collapsed. The news hit Mark hard. He had always believed that with Arthur backing him, he could rebuild even if he lost everything. But once Arthur fell, that dream died with him. And when the man you rely on crumbles, you fall right alongside him. It didn't take long before Mark was pushed out completely, left with nothing. I barely paid attention. My focus was on rebuilding my own life and visiting Grandpa Lou whenever I could. He was my late grandfather's old army comrade and one of the few people who had known my parents before they died in service. For 20 years, I never once asked him for help. I only sent him gifts during the holidays, hoping he could enjoy a quiet retirement after everything he'd done for the country. But this time, I had no choice but to ask for his help. When I did, he was thrilled. All these years, I've wanted to do something for old Jones's granddaughter, he said with tears in his eyes. You never asked for a thing. Now that I finally can help, I can rest easy. I thought that would be the end of our troubles. But I was wrong. A social media campaign soon went viral. Justice for fallen heroes. People started highlighting families of veterans who had been wronged or mistreated. Somehow, Mark's story made it to the top. The narrative painted him as a noble rescue worker forced to live in poverty with his wife and child. Netizens shared photos of their rundown apartment, Lily's swollen belly, and the caption, "Even a hero can fall into despair." The public outrage was fierce. According to the posts, the villains behind his suffering were me and the Liu family. With my reputation under attack, I knew I had to face Mark one last time. When I arrived at their place, the first thing I saw was Lily's belly. She looked at least 4 months pregnant. But the problem was, 4 months ago, Mark and I were still married. I know what you're about to say, Mark mumbled, the stench of alcohol clinging to him. But you ignored me back then. Always busy at the logistics office, never answering my calls or messages. You broke my heart, Sarah. What was I supposed to do? I gave a short, bitter laugh. So, it's my fault you cheated? Lily was alone, he said, slumping on the couch. She needed someone. I already had you and Caleb, but she had no one. I couldn't give her my love anymore, but I could at least give her a child. Something to hold on to. My expression turned cold. He gave a pitiful laugh. I loved you completely, Sarah. But in the end, you betrayed me. My hand moved before I could stop it.
Slap.
I was head of logistics, Mark, I said, voice trembling with fury. You could have seen me any time if you'd gone to the front lines. But you didn't because you were too busy playing house with Lily. Don't you dare make infidelity sound righteous. Just then, the door creaked open. Mommy, Caleb ran in and wrapped his little arms around me. Did you bring us money? The sight of him broke my heart. His clothes were torn, his face thinner than before. Mark took another gulp of beer. He's your son. At least leave something for him. That was how he always controlled me, through Caleb. He knew the boy was my weakness and used that bond to drain me emotionally, just like in my past life. Back then, he even told me my presence was hurting Caleb's future chances at happiness. But this time, I refused to play that role again. I gently pushed Caleb aside and turned toward the door. There's no money. Mommy. Caleb's voice trembled. You never loved us, did you? Not me, not Daddy. For a moment, I looked back at him. He had Mark's eyes, the same eyes that always twisted love into guilt. They both knew I had loved them, yet they used that love as proof that I should suffer for them. I smiled faintly. You're right. They froze, disbelief written all over their faces. As I stepped out, Caleb shouted after me, desperate. Aren't you afraid we'll expose you online? We have fans now. I didn't even turn around. The very next day, their private chat logs surfaced on the internet. Every explicit message, every confession from the time they were still sneaking around behind my back. The truth had finally come out. The leaked messages exposed everything. In them, Mark hadn't hesitated to promise Lily a future. When she asked what he'd do if she got pregnant, he had replied without a shred of doubt, I'll give you a home. So when he sat there pretending to mourn our marriage, I already knew the truth. I had seen those chats long ago and quietly saved them as evidence, never expecting they'd one day clear my name. Once the screenshots went public, their carefully crafted image crumbled. Overnight, they lost thousands of followers. People began digging deeper and found that the so-called heroic rescuer had hardly set foot on any actual mission sites. Aside from the single day he pulled Lily from danger, he'd mostly worked from a safe distance. Meanwhile, I had spent months coordinating supply runs between the front lines and the rear, losing 15 pounds from exhaustion. When the truth came out, public sympathy flipped in an instant. Then came the final blow. Lily's pregnancy wasn't even Mark's doing. Before she met him, She'd been involved with an older man who paid her off and cut all contact when she got pregnant. Desperate, she turned to Mark, spinning a sob story until he agreed to play father to another man's child. When his reputation crashed, she vanished without warning. It turned out she had been secretly trying to win back her wealthy benefactor the whole time. Once he agreed to buy her a house, she left Mark behind without hesitation. Months later, I ran into Mark and Caleb again. They looked broken, shadows of who they once were. I couldn't stop myself from asking, "Do you hate her for what she did to you?" Mark's face was covered in stubble, his eyes dull from too many sleepless nights. "Why would I?" he muttered. "She was pregnant, and I couldn't give her anything. It wasn't her fault. I failed her." The word stung. "She lied to you, Mark. She used you, left you when you had nothing, and you still blame yourself? I stood by you for years, supported your career, carried our household on my back, and you never once thought you'd wronged me." He hesitated, then shook his head softly. "Sarah, you're not like her."
Slap.
The sound echoed through the room. "You're pathetic," I said, my voice cold. As I turned to leave, he stumbled after me. "Sarah, don't go. Please, I've missed you so much." My security team stepped in, blocking his path. "Sir, please stand back. If you continue, you'll face consequences." He blinked at them in disbelief. "Miss Jones? What did you call her?" "Miss Jones," one of them repeated. "She's now the CEO of one of the country's top firms. Frankly, it was generous of her to come here today." Mark froze, unable to process the words. Caleb, standing behind him, burst into tears. "Mommy,
Don't leave me.
I'm your son." My chest tightened. For a split second, I faltered, caught in the pull of old memories. His eyes lit up with hope. But then I turned away. I walked out without looking back. Letting go hurt, but not as much as reliving the same pain again. This time, I chose myself. Not long after, news of Mark's death reached me. He had been drinking heavily one freezing night, passed out in the street, and in his drunken haze thought he was burning up. He stripped off his coat and shoes, and never woke up again. Caleb was sent to an orphanage. Before that, he had tried reaching out to Lily for help, but she was in no condition to respond. Her lover's wife had discovered the affair, beaten her until she miscarried, and shattered both her legs. She now scraped by collecting bottles on the roadside, wrapped in a threadbare coat, living the same miserable life I once endured in my past existence. Caleb's desperation grew. He tried calling me too, but I had long since blocked their numbers. He had nowhere to go. At the orphanage, his spoiled temper and arrogance made him unmanageable, and soon, he was transferred to a juvenile detention center. When I heard, a quiet sorrow stirred in me, but it passed quickly. That story no longer belonged to me. In this life, I would live only for myself. End of story.